Hey, welcome sports fans. It's time for another edition of Football Talk. I'm your host, Charles E. Smith Jr., and it's that time again. We're down to the Final Four. Super Bowl time is almost upon us, so it's 4 against 1. That's not very even, so I got to enlist and make it 4 against 2 here. Let's bring in my main man from an undisclosed location somewhere in Southern California, one of the greatest sports minds you'll find anywhere, none other than Chris Lardieri of FootballNation.com. Also, I urge everyone to follow him on Twitter at Chris L Sports. But right now, here comes the man. Chris, what's happening?
Charles, stellar introduction as always. Thank you very much, and thank you for keeping my location secret. I appreciate it.
Okay, well, we don't want you to be mobbed. We don't want people standing camping out on your front lawn. What happened last time when people found out where you live. But that was a long time ago, and from what I understand, your therapist says you're over that now.
Yeah, my physical therapist, exactly. My knees hurt after that. But no, I can confirm, though, however, that I am not what's known as a catfish. I am real. This isn't a hoax. I have nothing to do with Manti Te'o or anything like that. You kind of verified my whereabouts, and I'm an actual person. I actually write these columns. I actually talk to you. So let's just get that clear.
Okay, perfect. And speaking of columns, FootballNation.com, what have you got? What's the latest up? How about a little tease?
I'm going to have my conference championship preview this week. As usual, I don't break down the X's and O's and talk about who's going to win or lose or why. I kind of have some off-the-wall observations. For instance, everyone wants the Harbaugh Bowl, which means we probably won't get it. We'll talk about it later in our pick segment, but at the very least, I think there'll be 2 entertaining games. This is the last week we'll have to endure Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, and we get Jim Nantz, Phil Simms, and they'll have the Super Bowl again. So we'll see if Phil Simms says football 57 times a game like he likes to. But on the bright side is we won't have to endure Brian Billick, who had a terrible game against the Seahawks and the Falcons. When the Seahawks were driving for what they thought would be the game-winning touchdown, and they had a key third down scenario, and late in the game, he hypothesized that they possibly could kick the field goal and then try an onside kick, and then his play-by-play partner, Tom Brenneman, reminded him there was only about 40 seconds left, and that probably wasn't going to happen.
I remember that.
And then, and then even better, and not a lot of people picked up on this, after the game, he said, I think this game will silence a lot of the critics of the Seattle Seahawks. They were a number 1 seed, so I'm not quite sure where where Billick's head was for that game, but he kind of pulled a John Madden there and spaced out, huh?
Well, when you look at Brian Billick, though, remember he's also the head coach who thought he could who thought after he couldn't win a Super Bowl with Elvis Gerbach, he thought he could win a Super Bowl with Kyle Bowler. So, Brian Billick kind of lives in his own world. What can you say about him?
Yeah, he's like the mad professor. But I guess after you won one with Trent Dilfer, you think you can win one with anyone, right?
Yeah. Well, that it's funny because Trent Dilfer, though his skills were not, up to the point of, the overused term of elite quarterback, which now I think includes maybe 12 or 13 quarterbacks in the league. But I think Dilfer had some leadership qualities and some other intangibles that he had when he was out there on the field that I think, were infused into the team. And I think that's what he really brought to the Ravens back then that may have been overlooked. I think he was kind of a spark plug for the offense there. Yeah,
and people forget the Tony Banks was their starter for a big portion of that season. So anything's an improvement over that. And it also wasn't Dilfer's fault that he went to Tampa Bay back in their halcyon days.
Right. The pride of Fresno State, Trent Dilfer. So, let's go ahead and, just break down a little bit of these games. We're down to our Final Four teams, obviously. It's going to be the Ravens, the Patriots, the Niners, or the Falcons, who are crowned champions this year. But, what sticks out to me is that Ravens game, against the Denver Broncos. And we had talked about it last week, and I know you really wanted to go with Baltimore, but you went with the Denver Broncos. And we had talked about Peyton Manning, his propensity for choking in the clutch, and sure enough, that was kind of a strange finish to the game, not to mention that horrible interception in overtime.
Yeah, I have no idea, and I thought this at the time, why Peyton Manning takes a knee with believe it was 31 seconds left,
Right.
especially when you look the next day and how Atlanta rallied so quickly to kick the game-winning field goal. Especially in Denver, they had 2 timeouts. Your kicker, Prater's got a great leg. In that thin air, we've seen people tie the all-time distance record at 63 yards. Not out of the realm of possibility. And then, I've had some people tell me in the aftermath of that great game, oh, the Denver defense blew it, which they did. But let's face it, they got a kick return and a punt return for a touchdown. Peyton wasn't the sharpest. And as you and I, a little plug here, have pointed out, playing outdoors in the cold really didn't help Peyton, his arm, his neck, or anything like that. I think we finally saw the effects of that.
Yeah, true. And not only when we look at Manning over the years, and, like I said, for all of his glory and everything and winning, averaging probably, 12 wins a year, but still a sub-500 playoff record. And when you look at him, having been in the league for, I think it's 16 years now, and they said in preparation for the game, not only was he wearing a glove, but he'd been keeping his hand in a bucket of ice water to practice throwing the ball. If you're at this point in your career and you still need to do something like that to play a game outdoors, maybe that's one of those things where Elway, when he chose Peyton Manning to be a quarterback, okay, next time, don't get a quarterback who not only chokes in postseason but cannot play in the cold. And you'd think that maybe next year what Manning will do is one or two things. Either you throw a few games so maybe you can get a game in a dome, or you can just wear that glove all year long in preparation for when you have to play a game in the cold and you have to wear that glove. Maybe it'll feel better for him.
Yeah, look at what Kurt Warner did in the end of his career when he had that great run with the Cardinals. He started wearing that glove nonstop. So that's a good point. Maybe he should. But, yeah, I was really surprised. I thought Peyton would go to a Miami or an Arizona or a dome team, and he didn't. And I don't hear a lot of the talking heads talking about this like we are. I think it's a legitimate issue.
Yeah, definitely. And that was the thing. We heard Rodney Harrison say the week before, he talked about Peyton Manning, and he said, Peyton Manning can't play in the snow. That's it, And Rodney Harrison, who was on that New England defense that had many meetings during the playoffs with Manning and kept Manning out of the Super Bowl a lot of times, he knows about him. He played against him many times, too. Yeah.
He would know a lot of cold days in Foxborough with seeing that firsthand.
Okay, so, and then the other thing was, you'd pick the Niners to beat the Packers, but Colin Kaepernick. And one thing, when we were breaking that down, and I was talking about could the Packers stop Frank Gore, well, they sort of stopped Frank Gore, but Colin Kaepernick running for 181 yards and then throwing for, I think, 265 more, but he was just a beast out there.
Yeah, it brought back great memories of the 1980s Eagles with Randall Cunningham. He could beat you with his arm or his legs, and just a big guy that you can't even knock down. It's not like a Michael Vick who's 6 feet tall, and if you hit him right, you're going to knock him out. He is big, he is fast, and he can throw the ball. So definitely a dual threat, and I think he's going to present a lot of problems for the Falcons on Sunday.
Yeah, and then speaking of the Falcons, we got to, of course, congratulate Tony Gonzalez, who after all these years finally got to walk off the field after a playoff game and have that thrill of victory and see what that tasted like. And he just broke down in tears afterwards, in fact. But great to see the big fella, definite Hall of Famer, and finally getting that little taste of glory there by winning just his first playoff game after all these years.
Definitely. Pride of Huntington Beach, I might add. And I think he was like the rest of us watching in our living rooms. I think he thought he was going to lose that game.
Yeah.
So, not only emotional, probably just as stunned as we were.
Right, and also hats off to the Seattle Seahawks for having the type of season that they had in even losing that game and getting that far and really coming back from 20 points down, scoring 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter to push the Falcons to the brink like they did. And you look just a few mismanagement things, not leaving enough time on the clock to get a field goal at the end of the first half would have given them 3 extra points. And then that last sideline pattern that he throws, which isn't far enough to really get him into field goal range and only leaves enough room for a Hail Mary. Some rookie mistakes by Russell Wilson, but what I'd say is for the Seattle fans out there, that for the first time in a while, I think that they can look at their future and say that, things look pretty bright there in Seattle for the Seahawks.
Yeah, definitely. Wilson being only a rookie and getting this far, I mean, the future has to be very bright, like you said. And let's not also forget the one of our favorite, well, I should say least favorite moves in the NFL, the icing the kicker. Now, I know Bryant kicked the ball. He knew he got a free kick, but regardless whether he shanked that kick deliberately or not, icing the kicker does not work. And Pete Carroll learned that the hard way. So let's hope a lot of these fellow NFL coaches follow suit and stop with these shenanigans already, because it doesn't work.
Yeah, and also, the other thing was Marshawn Lynch in that game. It seemed like, and just a few things that were troubling about that was, you saw a few third and shorts where Marshawn Lynch either wasn't in the game or was in the game but not even part of the play. He had fumbled on the goal line against Washington the week before. He had a fumble in this game. So maybe, I don't know what happened with the big fella there, but maybe at the worst possible time to get a little case of fumbleitis, or maybe some type of a little injury up there in his arm, but we never heard anything about it.
Yeah, that's a great observation, because I'm scratching my head wondering why Michael Robinson's touching the ball in key situations and not Lynch. So may need to do a little investigating on that.
Yeah, well, I'll see what I can do. I'll have my people get on it first thing in the a.m.
Good work.
Okay, well, you know what, and we're just about ready in a few minutes to go into the pick segment. Of course, we only got 2 games, so we can analyze those a little bit more in depth, but any other observations you want to bring up before we get into that pick segment?
Yeah, I don't like to call the host of the show out, but we've got to give credit to Matty Ice, Matt Ryan. I know you've been a naysayer all along. You've been consistent, but not only did he win his first playoff game, it was an outstanding drive against a tough defense to get his team in field goal position. So looked like a poised veteran, and got to hand it to him. We'll see what happens this week, but looks like he got off that proverbial monkey off his back.
Yeah, that's true, and I got to give it up for Matty Ice too. And before you get that first playoff win, hey, he's a prove it to me player. He's had the great regular seasons, not got a playoff win, so he's got to prove it to me. He did get the monkey off his back, but see, there's monkeys, there's chimps, and then there's gorillas as you go up the chain. So he got the monkey off his back. Now he's got a chimpanzee on his back, which is a little bit heavier. Then, of course, you get the gorilla on your back later on. And right this week, he's going to have to try to shake a chimpanzee off his back, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and that's an 800-pound gorilla at that.
Okay, so, let's go ahead and get into the pick segment. Of course, I was the regular season champion, but as we know, and as Peyton Manning found out, hey, that's just kind of short-lived. I got you by 1 game, but here in the playoffs, it looks like my man Chris has an insurmountable lead. I'm at 3-5. Chris sits at 6-2. So let's go ahead and get right into it. And let's start with those 49ers against the Falcons. The 49ers, of course, took care of business, 45-31 last week over the Packers. We talked about that dramatic victory the Falcons had over the Seahawks. And Colin Kaepernick, all his rushing. What do you think about this game?
I think it'll be a good game. By no means do I think it'll be lopsided or a blowout on either side. The Falcons' offense, as we've seen this year, really been clicking well. Tony Gonzalez, I think, a man on a mission to get to the Super Bowl. Michael Turner, we had actual Michael Turner sighting last week. He ran the ball well, so maybe he's resurrected his career here temporarily. However, you're going up against that stout 49er defense, even though Aaron Rodgers managed to throw on them last Saturday night. I wouldn't want to face them. I don't think you're going to be able to run the ball on them. That pass rush is going to be fierce. And on the other side of the ball, I mean, you've got to be a believer in Colin Kaepernick. Like I said, he can beat you with his arm. He can beat you running. I think that frees up a lot of more running lanes for Frank Gore, because you've pretty much got to have someone shadow Kaepernick at all times. You even see Michael Crabtree kind of resurrecting what everyone thought was going to be a forgotten career. I just like the 49ers. I think they're a better all-around team. I think Jim Harbaugh, after the crushing loss in the NFC Championship game last year to the Giants, has his team on a mission, and I think they're going to do it. That said, I think the Falcons will hang in there. So wishful thinking, it'll be a good game, but just looking at the way the Packers 49ers game shook out last week,
right.
Even though it kind of 49ers pulled away, I do think that was, for the most part of the game, a lot closer than the final score indicated. So I'm expecting more of the same this week, but I look for the 49ers to win and get their trip to New Orleans.
Yeah, and something else is that they're going to be playing in Atlanta, so they're going to be playing indoors, going to be playing on turf, which will make Kaepernick a little bit quicker than he is even on the natural grass. But I was a little bit torn with this game when I had just finished watching. And as you know, we never plagiarize anyone here. This is all our original thoughts. But as I was listening to the post-game show, and I heard Howie Long say something, which was, when you look at the trouble the Falcons had with Russell Wilson and his mobility, imagine the trouble they're going to have with Kaepernick. And I really started breaking it down at that point. And when you look at the Kaepernick versus the Falcons defense and Ryan versus the Niners defense, we look at the running game. So not only are the Falcons going to have to deal with Frank Gore, who is a legit, top 5 running back in the league, but they're going to have to deal with Kaepernick also. And if you look at the other side of the ball, Michael Turner did okay. And for 3 quarters, he did kind of run through the Seahawks defense. But you're looking at the Niners, who are 4th ranked against the rush. At one point, they were the number 1 ranked defense overall in the league. So they'll be able to, I think, contain Michael Turner. And with the quick linebackers with Patrick Willis, I don't think you'll see Gonzalez getting too much of that intermediate stuff. So it's going to be all about really Roddy White and Julio Jones trying to get down the sidelines against the Niners secondary. And then you've got the pass rush of the Niners putting the pressure on Ryan. So I think what you'd have to do with this game is, if I was Smith, I would gain. Well, I am Smith, but not the guy who coaches the Falcons. What I would do, though, is I would devise a game plan and figure I got to go out here and score 40 points against the Niners. You can't turn this into a defensive struggle. I think that Matty Ice is going to have to go out, and he's going to have to air the ball out against the Niners defense. You're going to have to take it in chunks. I don't think they're going to be – you don't have the running game, and I don't think Michael Turner is the guy to play ground and pound against a defense like the 49ers. Remember, he only averaged 50 yards a game during the regular season. So Matty Ice is going to have to go to the air, but in the end, I think there's too many weapons on the side of the 49ers. I like Kaepernick. I like Crabtree, Davis. I like Gore. I like the Niners defense. They say defense wins championships. And, too bad for Tony Gonzalez. I know you got that first playoff win, but that's going to have to be it. And that 95% that you might retire, you might want to just retain that 5% and come back for one more year, because I think it's going to be the Niners, coming through in this game here.
I agree, and getting to your 95% reference, remember that was the likelihood Andy Reid was going to coach the Cardinals, and he ended up in Kansas City, so something to think about.
Yeah. And Chip Kelly winds up in Philadelphia after telling everyone no. I guess he just wanted another bird, so he coached Ducks, now he wants to coach Eagles. I guess it's going to take, got to have something that takes flight.
Yeah, unless he said, I'm going to my, like a kid, I'm going to my room. I don't want anyone to bother me, when you really want to see who will come check on you. So I guess the Eagles wanted him more than the Browns, huh?
All right, so we're in agreement with that game. We both have the Niners. And you know what? When you said it would be a close game, but I think really this game could get out of hand. I think when we look at the defenses, we look at the abilities of Kaepernick and the strike ability of the Niners. If the Falcons aren't careful, this game could get out of hand and wind up getting ugly on them. But hopefully they'll be able to keep it close and keep it entertaining.
Yeah, definitely. And not to quote the professional odds makers, but I know the 49ers are, last I checked, a 3-point favorite. So
right.
I guess the powers that be are in the know. The smart money seems to think it'll be a close game. So we shall see, but you need a couple turnovers and the game could get out of reach. Very
true. So let's go over to the AFC. The Ravens looking more and more like a team of destiny. Ray Lewis's last year against Brady and Welker, still doing it after all these years. Welker, by the way, does not have a championship ring. Remember that. He does not have a championship ring. He came in after the Patriots had won their first 3 Super Bowls. So, and this is a rematch, of course, of last year's AFC Championship game. The Patriots did lose Rob Gronkowski again last week, so he's going to be out for the playoffs. He'll be back next year. But what do you think on this one?
I think this is a really hard game to forecast. The Patriots are big favorites right now. I really don't know why. I really like the way the Ravens are playing on offense. I think Flacco, one of the most maligned quarterbacks in the NFL, silenced a lot of his critics with the way he played last week, throwing the ball downfield, which is what he excels at, moving around the pocket, rallying his team. Very impressed with that. Ray Rice is running like the old Ray Rice we know and love.
Right.
And that defense came up with the stops when they needed it. I think the one X factor here that I keep thinking about is the Ravens finally have a kicker. Justin Tucker, the rookie from Texas, is no Billy Cundiff. And had Billy Cundiff made that field goal last year, the Ravens are going to the Super Bowl and not the Patriots. That said, I think the Patriots just have too many weapons on offense. I think Belichick will have his team prepared. And much like the 49ers, I think they're a team on a mission. They want to get back. They know they won't be facing Eli Manning, so maybe a little bit clearer path to another Lombardi trophy for them. But I'm going to go with the Patriots.
All right. You know, this is a tough game, and we talked about it when we were doing pregame, and I said I was really on the fence about this. And it's funny I'd be on the fence on a game like this where one team is a 9-point favorite. I think that was the last time I checked. The Patriots are 9-point favorites in this game. But when you look at that Baltimore and Denver game, what kept the game close for Denver was the special teams play. I mean, you got a punt return for 90 yards, a kickoff return for 104 yards. And, yeah, you can say that Flacco, and it was kind of blown coverage, letting Flacco get that touchdown pass to Jacoby Jones there at the end. But really, other than those special teams play, Baltimore they really handled the Denver Broncos. I was leaning Patriots here. I think I'm going to go ahead and go with the Ravens in this game. The revenge factor. Last year, they know that was their Super Bowl. They should have been in the Super Bowl last year. Lee Evans drops a touchdown pass. Then Cundiff shanks the field goal that would have sent it into overtime. Ray Lewis's last year, I think all those things working. I think Baltimore's going to come out and get this done. Baltimore, you wouldn't think so, though, being 1-4 in their last 5 games to end the season. But remember, they had just replaced their offensive coordinator. Everybody was hurt. So they're really healthy for the first time this year. And on offense, when you talk about Ray Rice getting back to doing what he does, I think that has a lot to do with the offensive coordinator. I never liked the way Cam Cameron called the game when he was their coordinator. He would run Ray Rice in stretches, and then all of a sudden you would realize you haven't seen Ray Rice carry the ball for 15 minutes for reasons unbeknownst to me. I don't know. So I like the Ravens. Yeah, I like the Ravens in this game. The narrowest of margins. But I think the Ravens are going to go ahead and pull this game out. And Ray Lewis will get to end his career in another Super Bowl.
I would not be surprised at all. And I think it would be pretty ironic if it comes down to a field goal. And in addition to that, Terrell Suggs has really woken up. He played well last week,
right.
So I think he's really inspired that defense. And, you can always count on Ed Reed in the secondary. So by no means will it be easy for the Patriots. That 9-point line is a head-scratcher to me as well.
Yeah, well, remember, I think it's just about a mystique of the Patriots because, remember, I think they were they were a 5-point favorite in last year's Super Bowl, too. But it's just because of what people think of the Patriots, because of the reputation they have. Not to say they're not a good team, but remember the betting lines, as you know, Chris, but just for everybody out there, the betting lines are not really about which team is better. It's just about getting the money spread out evenly. That's just strictly a gambling thing. It doesn't necessarily have to do with the strength of the teams. It's really a lot of public perception goes into how those lines come out.
Yeah, definitely. And if there were more people who were bullish on the Ravens, you'd see that come down. Much like like you said, with the way the Super Bowl line opened last year, it got down pretty low once the once the betting public realized that the Giants were going to get good and motivated by being underdogs, and you saw that line swing.
And one other thing that doesn't get talked about, Ray Lewis's last year, but, Ed Reed is he's got to be one who's feeling the window maybe start to close a little bit, because he has been relatively healthy this season, but he's had problems over the years. And Ed Reed's body is getting banged up more and more. So there's a matter of how many seasons he got left in him. I'd say after this season, I wouldn't be surprised to see Ed Reed retire after maybe at the end of next year or the year after that, because he really gets banged up a lot.
Yeah, he does, and he's also lost a step too, which is kind of sad, but it happens.
Yep. Well, being a safety, fortunately he can kind of, roam a little bit. He's just got to anticipate a little bit sooner so he can make up for that step, as opposed to when a cornerback loses a step. But I got the Ravens winning this game, and not by much. I think it may come down to a final drive, a final possession, but I kind of like the Ravens. I like the way that they're playing. I think they're on a roll. And, hey, all due respect to Brady and the Patriots, but I like the Ravens in this game to get even for last year's debacle. Same place, same time, same everything. Returning to the scene of the crime. So it's the perfect setup here.
Definitely, and I could see you're staying on that purple train no matter what.
Toot toot. Okay, well, just about time to wrap things up. Before we go, though, Mr. Lardieri, do you have any final words of wisdom, some little nuggets, thoughts, anything for the viewers out there?
Yeah, getting back to Chip Kelly, very interesting to see if his style of collegiate offense that he ran at Oregon will work in the NFL. As an unabashed New York Giants fan and NFC observer, I think it'll be very interesting. Not quite sure what sort of quarterback he'll bring in, or if he'll work with Nick Foles. But you know what? I give the Eagles credit. They went out. A lot of the coaching candidates have fallen by the wayside. Mike McCoy to the Chargers, a few others in the last few weeks, and they went out and made a big splash. They got the guy everyone thought that they wanted from the get-go. So I'll give the Eagles kudos for that, definitely. But it should be interesting. We may start to see, especially with Kaepernick here, the style of play in the NFL and even quarterbacking change will now swing back to where you've got these, not so much running quarterbacks, but quarterbacks who can run, very mobile. You look at like a Russell Wilson, or you look at someone like Aaron Rodgers, who isn't necessarily a scrambler, but is very fleet-footed and can evade the rush. And Kaepernick, quite frankly, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, reminded me of Randall Cunningham with a better arm. Is that the prototype we're going to see going forward, or will the pocket passer continue to thrive? It's going to be an interesting transition here, and I think looking at the way RG3 ran the offense in Washington, you're starting to see that transition. So the NFL will never get boring, and it's always changing.
And, well, I think that the read option is kind of the new thing. As far as with these quarterbacks, we talk about RG3 running that, Russell Wilson, Kaepernick. And if you remember, though, just last season it was all about the spread offense. But defensive coordinators, once they have a season or two to figure things out, it won't be as easy as you just running the read option and just marching up and down the field like they're doing right now. So it's a matter of how long it takes the defenses to adjust. It takes those defensive coordinators to start coming up with schemes which can kind of neutralize that. So I think that, the pocket passer is always going to be the way to go. For right now, the read option seems to be the thing, but we'll see. They solved the spread offenses, and I think they will find a way to slow down the read option quarterbacks as well. But it's going to take a season or so.
Yeah, definitely. It's a great observation. The question is, will the quarterbacks that start to run these offenses only get bigger and faster? That's the one thing that you can't defend. But I always go back to, it's one thing to have good feet, but to run in the NFL against a 250-pound linebacker with safety speed and defensive end strength, you're not going to have a very long career. So I always go back to that. Guys better learn how to slide or get out of bounds.
Absolutely. And on that, we better slide and get out of bounds here. So, hey, Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure. Everybody, you can follow Chris on Twitter at Chris L Sports. Read his writings at footballnation.com. You can follow me on Twitter at The Inside Sports. Go to my website, officialinsidesports.com. So for Chris Lardieri, this is Charles E. Smith Jr. Thanks for watching. This has been Football Talk, and we'll see everybody next week with a Super Bowl preview.